Hello and welcome to PowerServer 2017, extending PowerBuilder functionality for PowerServer-based mobile applications. The PowerServer environment that we're using today for this video includes the Windows 10 Fall Creator Edition 64-bit operating system, PowerBuilder 2017 Universal IDE. Notice that you must have the Universal Edition in order to communicate between PowerBuilder and PowerServer. We're going to be deploying a test-based applications to a .NET-based 64-bit PowerServer 2017. We're going to utilize the PowerServer Toolkit's configuration tool, and we're using an SQL Anywhere 64-bit database management system. That includes, by the way, the 32-bit client as well, because the PowerBuilder IDE is 32-bit, yet PowerServer is 64-bit, so we need both clients. We'll be utilizing the Appeon workspace on the mobile device. For testing, I have a Nexus 9 tablet with the latest Android operating system on it, and I also have an iPad with the latest iOS installed on it as well. For this video, I'll be using my iPad. We're going to utilize a local deployment model, which means that PowerBuilder, PowerServer Toolkit, PowerServer itself, and the SQL Anywhere database management system are all installed on the same developer PC. Topics covered in this particular video, first of all, are the actual new libraries that you need to attach to your PowerBuilder application to get to the mobile and web specific feature set. The first library is the Appeon Workarounds PowerBuilder library. Adding that to your actual PowerBuilder application will give you extensions to the Appeon workspace and to the web and mobile environment. The newer version of PowerServer 2017 also includes a Cordova library called Appeon_Cordova.pbl. And it actually allows you to access the Cordova plugins within the Android or iOS device. We'll be having a specific talk about that in detail later on in this video. The first thing, of course, is to locate these libraries. Let's have a look and see how we can do that. You'll notice that when you install the Appeon PowerServer, it'll be installed inside iNet Pub, wwroot, and Appeon. So if we go to this particular library, you can see this is actually PowerServer where it gets installed underneath IIS Application Server. Underneath that is a folder called Develop Temp File. Underneath that is Appeon Workarounds. And then if you drill down to that specific level, you'll see the two libraries that we just talked about, Appeon Workarounds and Appeon Cordova.PowerBuilder library. We need to basically take a copy of those. For example, this particular application here called AWS or Appeon Workspace Demo, I would use the right-hand mouse button and I would paste those libraries in, which I've already done. You can see here Appeon Cordova is there and Appeon Workarounds is there. So these two libraries contain various PowerBuilder class objects that enable your PowerBuilder application to connect to the web and mobile world, extend the functionality of the average PowerBuilder application. And we'll be looking at that in detail as we go through this video. The next thing to have a look at before you actually get into coding is to look at the PowerServer help. Notice that there are two specific editions, and you may have both installed. So here's a little trick that you can do in your PowerBuilder IDE to make sure you can access one or both of these particular help files. Note that if you're going to do web-based programming, you definitely need the PowerServer Web Mobile help, which is more comprehensive because it covers both environments. So coming back to the PowerBuilder IDE, we'll have a look here at the PowerServer Toolkit. You can see here the second last icon on the right is the PowerServer help. Clicking on that, you notice that this is the PowerServer help from the PowerBuilder edition. So this link here includes PowerServer Mobile with the PowerBuilder Universal Edition, only includes mobile functionality. It does not include the help for the web side of life. So going back here to the actual Windows panel, you can see here that PowerServer is actually installed. The help is there, which is the more comprehensive help. Here's the little trick. Go to the actual file location, which is the shortcut for that help, and copy it to the clipboard. Now use the right-hand mouse button and customize your PowerBuilder toolbar. In this example here, I've already done that. So if I click on that, you can actually see I've actually copied the shortcut to this particular location for the command line, and the trick here is to prefix that, which is hh.exe space and then that actual pointer to the instance of that help. hh.exe, of course, is the Windows 10 executable for launching HTML-based help. So just tack that on front, add a description if you'd like, and notice that when we actually come back here, it says PowerServer 2017 help, and I click on that. Notice that we're actually now in the PowerServer 2017 help file, not the PowerServer mobile only version. This includes both web and mobile. So now if we actually drill down a little bit, we can actually see the API guide. And the API guide here will talk about the workarounds library, and we'll talk about the Cordova plugins as well. This is the more comprehensive help that we need to use when we're dealing with PowerServer, which includes both web and mobile functionality. So the first thing we need to look at are the general functions and features. They're specifically functions that can be used across both the web and mobile environment. There's some key startup ones that you need to be able to use, because first of all, you need to figure out whether you're actually in a web or mobile environment. And then from that information, you can decide to enable or disable certain features depending on whether you're web only, mobile only, or a combination of both, and where you're instantiated. So let's have a look at the general functions and features. You can see if we return to the help file under Appeon workarounds, which is the key file here, underneath that is general API. Now we can see a list of functions. The first one that we need to look at is the client type. The client type here will return you either web, PowerBuilder, or mobile as a string. Of course, then you can interrogate the return and figure out whether you're a PowerBuilder, of course, native Win32, Win64 application, you're running underneath PowerServer Web, or you're running underneath PowerServer Mobile. So this is one of the first functions that you may want to have a look at. You'll notice that there are a lot of other functions that are available in the generic category. For example, the actual web version, the username that's logged in to the specific session to PowerServer, the actual URL to PowerServer, the type of run mode that we're dealing with, have we been deployed as a release or is it in debug mode? If we're web, are we in a 64-bit? And you can use the OF log to log information to web environment or the mobile environment. So there are different functions here in the Appeon extended functions object within the Appeon workarounds PowerBuilder library that get you to the general functionality. The next thing you may want to do is you may want to actually look at specific web functionality. So in the web environment, for example, the next section may be of interest is the Appeon client functions. For example, getting the actual browser version or getting the HTTP information. We can also do file upload and download in the web environment. We can call web services. So there's many different things that we can do within that are web specific. So you can have a look at that also in the general API. Notice if we then go down in the help file to the mobile environment, mobile API, there are features inside the Appeon workarounds library that will help us with audio, will help us with barcode reading, camera, device itself, interact with a GPS system, handle images, that is pictures, do mapping for Google Mapping, handle playing of media, near-far communications, notifications, handle offline databases, for example, online payments, spell checking, and also display web information. So let's have a look at this in detail. So returning back to our PowerBuilder IDE, notice that I have a little test application here called AWS Test. I've added to that the Workarounds PowerBuilder library. If I expand that, you'll notice that there are a whole bunch of actual object classes, for example, called EON Mobile Audio, Application Workspace, Barcode, Camera. Notice for each one of those, there's also an extension layer. The key here that when you use these object classes to get to the specific device functionality that you're looking for, use the extended version. Don't use the base. Use the extended version. So you notice that there's a connection and then an extended connection and a device and an extended version of that object class. Use the extended version. If you drill down to one of these objects and look at the functions, for example, this is an example of the mobile device itself. We can have a look and see what the device ID is, the type of device type. We can interrogate the dots per inch, the density of the screen definition, how much memory is available on the device, the name of the device, the orientation, the operating system, etc. So there's a lot of functionality here that you can do in each particular object class to get you functionality of the mobile device. For example, for the mapping software, another example, look at the functions here, we can actually get the actual coordinates of where you are based on an address. Or we can actually get the coordinates based on what the GPS says the device is located at. So the different functions in these classes to be able to enable your PowerServer application to deal with these specific features of the mobile device. Again, remember that you can use the PowerServer 2017 help file to actually get down to the actual definition of the object class and those methods and the details of how to use them. So let's have a look at this particular little test application. If we look at the actual configuration at this point, called AWS tests, you'll see here that it is defined as a mobile application. And it has been deployed to PowerServer. So we can actually run this application on PowerServer. Let's do that now. So at this point, notice that I'm actually on my iPad device, and I'm actually looking at Appeon Workspace. I've launched that application. Notice that the Appeon Workspace test application has been deployed to the mobile device. So if I tap on that and launch the actual application, you'll notice here that it basically is a set of tab pages with the different types of tests. So we can have a look and see what's happening. Notice if I tap AWS tests and I run through some of those device functions that we looked at in the help file, you can see here that I can actually write to the actual log file. I can clear the log file. Passive touch is not enabled, it's 0. Assistive touch is turned off. Rotation lock is 0, which means the application can be rotated. Title bar is visible, 1 is true. Orientation, for example, is 2, which means landscape mode, and we can continue on down the list. If we go to barcode, for example, I can hit the read here, and that'll activate the actual camera on the back of the device and actually read the barcode, and it'll appear within the data area. Or, for example, if I type in something in the data area, instead of random numbers, I can hit the create here, and notice that it actually builds a barcode for me at this point, which I can then print out from the device. And if I have a sticky label, I can stick it on the particular product. If we go to the actual connection, for example, we can see here that the connection is active, and I'm using an Ethernet network to talk between the mobile device and PowerServer. If we look at the device particular test, you can see here that I can actually get the device ID, the amount of memory that's available, the free memory on that particular device, the name of the device, the orientation, what type of platform it's running on, which in this case is, of course, the iOS operating system. If we go to geolocation and then open the location, non-visual object, and select position, you can see here there's my longitude and latitude, and I'm 96 meters above sea level, which is actually correct for where I'm located. If we go to the global ones, we can actually look at global tests. And again, now we can find out that we are a mobile application. There's the get client type there in the middle, my IP address, my HTTP URL to PowerServer itself. So there are lots of information that we can get here from the actual global information. I can email from here. I can do mapping from here, that I'm actually sitting here at the intersection of Martin Street. Notify, for example, if I hit add notification, you can see here that a notification now is sent to the operator on the mobile device. So let's return back to the PowerServer IDE and have a look at some of the source code behind some of the things I just showed you. So let's have a look at the actual application. The main test itself, of course, is this particular window with the various tab pages. For example, AWS tests. And if we look at the script here, you can see that one of the things we do here, if we look actually at the instance variables, I have the AWS object instantiated here. I've declared it as an instance variable. In the open of the actual window itself, I've done a create on it, and then I can basically interact with it. And I can actually then call methods on that, clear log itself, get assistive touch mode, get the type of rotation lock at this point, is the close application icon visible, for example. So if we went to the Appeon workarounds library, if we go down to the mobile AWS object class and look at the functions, you can see those methods there as well. And to be able to actually then, you can notice we can send mail from here. We can do all sorts of things. We can do sets as well, so we can change the input mode. we can change the actual press interval. How long does the finger have to be held on something before we react to it? So there's many different methods there to either get the status of what's going on or to change the status by using a set command. So there's an example of the AWS. If we looked at the actual barcode and we did a create on the barcode, you'll see here that we basically use a pointer to an instance of the barcode object, and we use the OF create to be able to pass in some information from the single line edit, and it returns us the barcode, which we then basically drop into a picture object, and we see the barcode appear on the screen. For the connection, we did a connection test to find out the network. We do have a connection object, and the method was OFGetConnection. And it returned us the type of connection, which is an Ethernet connection, or a type 2 was being returned. So looking at the device test, same thing. There is a device object, and the device object itself, which I have a pointer to, has methods such as get the device ID, get the device type. And again, remember, these are all instance variables. So this is the object that we're talking about here, Eon Mobile Device EX. And of course, the pointer to that is IO device. And that's the code that we're looking at here. If we look at, for example, one of the other things we did was a notification. Look at the add notification here. You'll see that there actually is a notification object class, and there's a method called OF add message to be able to actually display that message to you on the mobile device that we saw there on the iPad appear from the top. So there's just some examples of using these particular objects to delve deeper into the device or interact with the device itself or the mapping software. So the last topic here in the general topics, upgrading from a previous PowerServer version. Once we install, for example, PowerServer 2018-2019, we go to CINet pub www root Appeon develop temp file Appeon workarounds, and we'd find the new versions of Appeon workarounds and Appeon Cordova library. We just take those particular libraries and copy them to the application location, redeploy the application, do a full build, redeploy to PowerServer, and pick up the new features of whatever Appeon workarounds or Appeon Cordova library provided. So what about the Cordova plugins? What is a Cordova plugin? The Apache Cordova plugin is an open source framework that allows you to access standard technologies within a particular mobile device. So Appeon has leveraged the Cordova plugins by providing the mapping in Appeon Workspace and providing object classes to get you to the native device APIs. So how does that work? There's a whole bunch of plugins that have been developed. They're open source and they're available from the Cordova website. As you can see here in the center, examples of plugins to handle finger touch, authorization, geolocation, push notifications, progress bars, etc. So there are two approaches in PowerServer Mobile to use the particular plugins. The first one is the harder way. We do provide an API through Appeon Workspace, the mobile framework. However, if you want to write your own JavaScript APIs to deal with the plugin, for example, to get to various services and sensors, you can do that. But the PowerBuilder developer would actually have to code the JavaScript API to be able to use the plugin directly, and would have to install the plugin separately from Appeon Workspace. The easier way, of course, is PowerServer Mobile and PowerServer Web and Mobile allow you to deal with the Appeon Workspace where certain plugins have already been mapped through the Appeon Workspace mobile framework. That automatically has all the JavaScript APIs already mapped and dealt with within Appeon Workspace. It allows you to easily deal with the Cordova library class objects to get, again, to the mobile operating system services or device sensors and input. So let's have a look how that works. So returning back to the application AWS tests, you can see here that I've also added the Appeon Cordova library. And notice that it contains objects such as Bluetooth, or contact information, fingerprinting, GPS, orientation, vibration, for example. So let's have a look and see how we can use that on the mobile device. So I'll return back to Appeon Workspace. So let's go to the tab page Cordova at the top. You can see here again, the Cordova plugins can get us to vibrating the particular device. And I don't have a fingerprint, but I do on my phone, for example. But on the iPad, there is no fingerprint reader. However, for example, I can turn the Bluetooth on and off. I can do GPS activity. Or I can just talk to the GPS, for example, on the orientation button. So in the example that I just showed you, you can see I use the orientation object, and I'd be able to actually use that to actually get the current heading of where the device was pointing by using the OF get current heading in my actual code. So this is all you need to do to be able to actually deal with the Cordova plugins that are pre-mapped in the Appeon workspace. So congratulations, you're now ready to extend PowerBuilder functionality to both the PowerServer web and mobile applications using PowerServer 2017. Thanks for watching.